Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. Just a few days back, the government of Canada passed a bill, and as they call it themselves, is the toughest impaired driving bill throughout the world. Well, I have nothing against prohibiting, checking, and restraining impaired driving, because impaired driving can kill innocent people. So whatever the penalty may be, if it can be a deterrent, there's no harm. And the bill C-45 has a very bland title, and that's to amend the criminal code. That is the offences relating to conveyances and to make consequential amendments to other acts. But what worries me is that this bill, C-45, which has become law, has given its great impetus and significantly enhanced state power and contains a number of such shortcuts that they are unconstitutional. They violate the Charter of Rights and the Freedoms. Possibly for the first time in the history of Canada, the Senate lived up to its duties and proposed amendments pointing out that the bill is unconstitutional, pointing out that the bill violates the Charters of Rights and the Freedoms, pointing out the problems that are going to rise. But the federal government, in its wisdom, decided to overlook those recommendations of Senate, rejected them, sent it to the Governor General for the royal assent, received the royal assent, and the bill becomes a law. The irony is that the minister, the Justice Minister, Jody Wilson, admits that she has every expectation that the new law shall be challenged in court. And everybody is sure that this new law, if challenged by the court, is quite possible, may be turned down because it's unconstitutional. But until those challenges wind their way up through the already overburdened judicial system, is the people who are going to suffer. As I said earlier, I do not mind the criminal suffering. I do not mind that the person who is impaired driver must be punished because he is a danger, not only to himself, but also to his prospective victims. But the very fact that the government is aware that it's an illegal act, it's an unconstitutional law, and yet it has passed, betrays the commitment of the government to live up to ideals. Now, let's take up the bill. The first thing which comes is that the impaired driving punishment shall be doubled from 5 years to 10 years. So, impaired driving is at par with rape and murder. Let's be very clear that in Canada, there is no capital punishment. So 10 years is a long time. It's all, as a matter of fact, even murderers and criminals like Omar Khader were released after 1 year. So 10 years for impaired driving, which may not have harmed anybody. Now, if the impaired driving has resulted in killing, I can understand it. But if impaired driving, the thing is only because of the roadside check, and then you are punished for 10 years into jail, is something absolutely ridiculous. A young man, a young teenager, driving is hauled up by the police. Breath analysis and is shown that his alcohol is 0.1% above the legal limits, he can be immediately hauled to the jail and later on sentenced up to 10 years. How far justified it is. But that's only the tip of the iceberg. The police now under this law has a power to detain, question, and demand a roadside breath sample from a driver, even if there is no ground to suspect so. So foreign students, workers, visitors, and permanent residents, not citizens, who are convicted under the law will lose their immigration status and be banned from Canada. So a person has come and all of a sudden a roadside test takes place. The person is having a bit of an alcohol, and now the liberal policy of marijuana being available free, possibly he has a bit of a drug, but not only shall he be jailed, but he lose the immigration status. A foreign student has come, has already completed a couple of years, is on the verge of getting a degree, and it doesn't get a degree, but goes back to his home. And then, beauty is that even if it's a first offense, they go to jail, or they go back home, or both. Now, it's no longer just an offense to operate a vehicle while impaired. This is the beauty or irony or tragedy of the law. Suppose you are driving and you come home. After 2 hours, if it is seen that you are having alcohol or having a drug, you can be punished. Under the new law, if you are impaired within 2 hours after operating the vehicle, you can be punished. In other words, you drive very sober without a sip of a drink, without even a whiff of marijuana, reach home, but have a few drinks afterwards. And now it's up to the accused to prove the innocence that he was not impaired at the time of driving. He is not caught at the time of driving. Imagine it. The person is not caught at the time of driving. There has been no roadside check. There has been no breath analysis. But after 2 years, he is going for a walk and the police guy comes to his house and take his breath analysis, and it's found that he has 2 drinks. They can simply handcuff him, haul him to jail, put him in an aeroplane and send him back home. Can there be anything more stupid and idiotic? And then, it's the old thing that you are not innocent till you are proved guilty. You are guilty till you are proved innocent. What a travesty of justice. And we call Canada to be a heaven where justice is there for all. And if these new police powers, which are shortcutting the immigration system, courtroom shortcuts, is like a relic of the old times, the dark ages. And they are relics of the dark ages. The new liberal drunk driving law is a perfect copy of the laws resurrected from the dark ages. Is in fact a political plagiarism which the government has done, and the government says that it will always stand for the rights of the Canadians and respect the Charter of Rights and the Freedoms. So look at the statement of the Foreign Minister saying that we will always respect all the rights of the Canadians, and the Prime Minister saying that we'll respect the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and the Justice Minister coming up that you are guilty of impaired driving after 2 hours of having done that. At that time, you were not guilty. But if you are drunk after that 2 hours, you have to prove that you were not drunk when you were driving. So, let's add a pledge. And the pledge is that in this country, there'll be rights for all the Canadians, but not for the immigrants, not for the foreign students, not for the foreign workers. The Charter of the Rights and the Freedom shall not be applicable to them. And it is not applicable especially if in these three categories you belong to a visible minority, which you would, since the visible minorities which are coming in a large number as immigrants and as foreign students. Because this is going to happen, the visible minorities will be the first to feel the impact of the new law. I feel it's quite pertinent to think that the government made a law targeting the minorities, especially the visible minorities. Don't forget that till recently, police in Toronto used to have the carding principle. A black is driving a Mercedes, and immediately he stopped, asked to show his ownership. Why? Because how can a black drive a Mercedes? You are driving a prestigious car, you are looked on with suspicion. So earlier what the police used to do, whether in GTA or in British Columbia or anywhere in the country, they would demand a roadside breath and sample if they had a suspicion that the driver has alcohol in their body. Now they don't need to have a suspicion. They can simply demand a breath analysis without any grounds whatsoever, and they'll do so because of that old carding principle which is still there. I'm telling you a poorly kept secret. The visible minorities will be targeted under the new law. The new police powers are going to convert Canada into a police state, especially for the visible minorities. Experience has unfortunately demonstrated, and demonstrated without any doubt, that random detention and search powers are often used in a non-random manner and are disproportionately targeting radicalized and marginalized institutions and individuals. Visible minorities have always been disproportionately arrested for marijuana offenses and disproportionately arrested, stopped, and carded by police. Things don't get better when they are behind the wheel. Might be they get worse. And if you remember that in 2016, the Ottawa police had admitted that the visible minorities were disproportionately subjected to traffic laws. The study also found that the visible minority was actually ticketed for driving infractions far less than the non-radicalized individuals. In other words, minorities were more likely to be stopped by police for no reason. And naturally, why should we expect that things would be different now when the police has more powers? So minorities will be pulled over, questioned, required to exit their vehicle, stand on the roadside or sit in the police car and provide a breath sample. This procedure may be tolerated by the majority of Canadians who are pulled over once every few years at the right stop. But the protection against discrimination and arbitrary harassment should not be determined by what majority would expect. For the minorities who are pulled over 5, 10, dozen times for no other reason than the color of their skin, being required to submit a breath analysis test will be an experience humiliating, degrading, and offensive. And that is why most Canadians oppose the government's expansion of the police powers. And that's why Senate had said that they want the law to be amended. But the government didn't bother about it. These are the actions of the government that doesn't care about the evidence-based criminal justice. So what's in store for the visible minorities? Are we going to witness a new apartheid in this country, which boasts itself and prides itself on equality for all? Are we going to find the same anti-coolie laws that were in South Africa, and they are going to be transplanted in this country? And I'm amazed that the leaders of opposition even have not objected strenuously. I agree they objected in the parliament. But what we needed was a complete information program in the whole of the country. It was incumbent on conservatives and on NDP to hold town halls, press conferences, seminars, statements outside the Parliament and House of Commons, telling people that they are in for trouble, that the country is being turned into a police state, that here the minorities will not be safe, and you will be judged on the basis of your color of your skin. I pity the framers of the Charter of Freedom because their dreams are shattered by the same generation of the younger people whose ancestors made those laws. And this country, which was hope for the minorities, is still the hope for the terrorists. They will be lauded, they'll be rewarded. But innocent minorities, because of the color of the skin, black or brown, or native Canadians, these will be the categories which will be suffering. So there will be two categories of citizens: an ordinary Canadian and the colored Canadian. Is that the future we were hoping for? I shudder to think of the future and the fate of the coming generations. What do you think? How do you feel? That's $1 million question facing all Canadians today, right now. Thank you.